I have to let them in, but it should be okay. Great. So listen, welcome one and all, and thank you very, very much for your interest in participating in this first off of one of these sort of events. I was saying earlier on, I've been wanting to do something along these lines, probably more on a face-to-face basis for a considerable amount of time. One thing and another, I've never got around to actually doing it, and this presented itself as an idea there, and I'm delighted with the response. You know, divided into two groups because I could really probably comfortably made it 3 groups really, but I think we'll be fine. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to screen share and get to, if I can get to the, oh, there's somebody else coming in. If I can just get to the right place. That's what I want there. Okay, so you can see this little sort of Google Slides presentation. Yeah, you've got that. Everyone's seeing this, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay. Now, I just need to keep this window open here so I'll know if somebody else is trying to get in. Okay, now, look, I sent you all, I think hopefully you all received this presentation as a PDF, yes?
Yeah.
Great. And I'm basically not going to talk about the first 16 slides because I think they're self-evident. I'm very happy to answer questions in relation to them later or by email afterwards or whatever. But I wanted to simply put down my position about this so you know where I stand in relation to human givens and all of this type of work, and also my view about whether this is like a continuing professional development or not. All the sections in blue there, I think, certainly seem to fit perfectly well with it being a CPD sort of event. And indeed, any time you spend in educating yourself afterwards as well, subsequent to this, studying stuff online and that sort of thing as well, you know. So the other thing is you're all human givens practitioners. Some of you may not know the journey of how this all started, and I just covered it a little bit in here with an explanation in that slide in the notes about the history of all of this. And then I just wanted to make the point about the relationship between working in an outcome-informed practice way and RIGAR, the RIGAR model of human givens, and how it fits like that. And it's more about prompting you to share your thoughts about that, you know, with all of us. I'd be very curious to have your feedback on how you find working in an outcome-informed way beneficial in your practice. So please don't be shy, don't hang back and jump on in. So I hope everyone's okay with that. I'm zooming right past that because I want to put as much time as possible into looking at Pragmatic Tracker and dealing with the important things that I want to show you in there, rather than, you know, teaching a grandma to suck eggs, if you like. So just looking at this slide here of the agenda, well, I want to explain a couple of things that are in the existing system that you're already working with, just for clarification, really. And while we're in there, answer some of the questions that have been put to me of things that people find a challenge here and there. So I've got those sort of listed out here for myself, and hopefully we'll get to cover all of those. Then I think I'll take a little pause and open up and I'll let you, you know, discuss any of those things that have arisen from that. We'll do that for a little while. Then we'll go into version 3, which I'm really excited about. Very soon, your site is going to be updated to version 3. And I'm very excited about some of the new things to show you in there. Then we'll get into more Q&A and discussion. And then if we've time, I'll refer to the slides, which you may be able to figure out anyway, particularly after I've discussed the scatter plot and stuff in version 3. You may be able to understand those slides, the last part of what I sent you as a PDF. So I hope all of that is okay. And I'm now just going over here to log into what we call a UAT which is a copy of the site that you're currently working on. Now, the very first thing I want you to notice, because this is relevant here, is that I went to log in and I got what's called a validation code. So this is what's called two-factor authentication. Now, it's a subject that I want to discuss with you. When Pragmatic Tracker, when we started with the site way back, I think 2011, we went live. And in the earlier days, we were making moves to do everything, obviously, to protect identity and all of that. And we were quite obsessed at the time with the idea of nothing going into the system that could identify a client. And that's why the system evolved, having hidden email address and hidden mobile phone number, etc. But our system developed, we expanded, we moved on to far higher quality service providers of servers. So we're with like a state-of-the-art server hosting company in Manchester. And we tick all of the boxes for HIPAA and GDPR and all these standards, if you like. And we feel more comfortable about data being in the system that, is identifiable data, like a client's email address and phone number. Now, obviously, with what you've got at the moment, you capture the email address and phone number and they're encrypted straight away and they're hidden from view. And the idea of that is that somebody looking over your shoulder can't see, if you're in a public setting and somewhere, somebody can't see anything. But there have been questions have come up. People have asked, for example, could I see the mobile phone number of the client? Could I see the email address of the client? And of course, we've greatly expanded the ability to capture notes and to have all the notes appearing in the summary page as well. So we feel comfortable about offering that option, and this is as some of the most frequent users of the system, you guys, between today and tomorrow. It's a discussion I want to have with you, really, about opening up, which you're going to see here right now. And how this works is, I just got to go over and get this validation code, 262944. So what happens is I get an email with a number. So the first time I log in a day, I have to do that. Then it doesn't come around again for another 12 hours. So a full day, if you like. The next day you do it again. So it's just the first time, and it's called two-factor authentication. And the idea is for security of your system. That's one aspect. Obviously, having very secure passwords is another important aspect as well. So that's that. Now, I've got a sample client in here to demonstrate, to point out some things to you. So the things I want to say about this, you can see here now, I've actually asked Tony to set this today so you can see the phone number of the client and you can see the email address of the client. So this is an option that we can, when we upgrade, we can make this feature available like this for you. I just wanted to point out the purpose. Maybe it's self-evident to you, but just in case it isn't, the verification process all came in as part of GDPR, because with GDPR, obviously there has to be full transparency under the conditions by which we, what our clients need to know about what we're capturing about them, etc., etc. And it's very important to establish that Pragmatic Tracker is actually communicating with the client, the person you intended to be communicating with. And so that's why you have the verification process. And unless these ticks are green, Pragmatic Tracker cannot communicate with the client. That's that. And again, when I open up the mic, see if you have any questions, I can answer them. You'll also have noticed when you create a new client, you can't create the client unless you click the clinical box. Again, as part of your normal intake procedure, it would be correct that a client knows exactly what you're doing with their data, that you're using an electronic system, that it's all data protected and secure passwords and all the rest of it. But that you must have their permission in order to do that. So our way of protecting us is to make sure that you've acknowledged that, and that's why that box is there. So that's the purpose of it. Now, I know Human Givens Institute have forms they created, template forms they created to help people with, you know, when you take on a new client, and I'm sure you've all got your systems for that. So I just wanted to emphasize that, really, point that out. Nothing else in there at the moment. Now, I'm moving on while I'm in the system that you're currently familiar with to answering some of the questions that have come up. So one question that's come up, for example, is how do I edit a session? Now, you may have noticed, so I've created an example case here. So this case, the 10th of March, when that client came in to see the therapist on the 10th of March, the therapist or the client didn't know at that point that this was going to be the final session. But in the process of the session, and this is, I think, often the case in Human Givens, you may not decide that today is going to be a final session until you're actually in that session. And so if you then go in afterwards and you want to change that session record to make it a completion session, you can see I can't edit it when I'm on this session record page here. I need to go to appointment setup. So that's the trick. So you're in a session record. To make any changes, like to the name or the date or the measures that were chosen or whatever, you need to go to the appointment setup, and then you can make the changes and save them. So that covers that. In terms of closing cases, in case anybody doesn't know, the place you close a case is over here. So you can go, if it's a planned ending, you can tick that, close the case, and it jumps across into your closed list. If for some reason you need to reopen that case again, you just click on the profile and you can reopen the case. Brings it back again. So that was that one. Now, another question that's come up quite commonly is around goals. There's a little step in goals that people really easily miss. First thing I want to point out is wherever you are in Pragmatic Tracker, again, you're probably well aware of this. If you click on help, you will come to a help site directly related to the page you're on. So there's a whole pile of help pages and they all relate to the page you're actually on at the time. So if I'm on session list and I go help, it'll come to the session list help, etc., etc. So you can, that's a way of finding out about goals anyway. But what I wanted to say here was this is the bit that often happens. So if we go back to the 2nd of, so this client, this fictitious client, had a screening appointment by telephone, came for the first appointment on the 2nd of February. Now, you can see here, the goals are here, but there's nowhere to score them. Now, if you imagine in that session on the 2nd of February, I'm the therapist, the client is with me, and I say, my Bill Andrews way of doing this is along the lines of, you know, John, should you choose to work with me over the next weeks, what's the most important thing that needs to change so you know the work we're doing together is helping? And this helps me to help the client to articulate the sort of goals they might have. So the client says, in this case, if I could just sleep better. And then tell me a bit more about that. Well, if I could just get more than 5 hours sleep a night. Great. And John, tell me at the moment, if 0 is the worst this could possibly be and 10 is the best it could be, where is it at the moment? And John says it's 3. And I go on and maybe there's another goal and I just jot them down. Now, that would be the way I typically do it. Now, what often happens is you come the next day. That session was on the 2nd of February. But of course, at that appointment, you don't have a goals measure as yet because you don't know what the goals are. So the client leaves, and it often might happen. For example, if it was the last client of the day, you mightn't get around to writing the notes up until the next day. So if you go into goals and you click to add a new goal, the date will default to today's date, right? Now, the problem with that, oops, I'll just cancel that. What happened here was the therapist went in to write the goals up and on the next day after the appointment, and it defaulted to the 3rd of February, which means when you go back to that session, even though goals was chosen, if I look in the appointment setup, goals was chosen, and indeed in the profile for the client, goals was chosen as well, it won't show because the dates aren't matching. So then if I go back here and I change this to 2nd of Feb, and the other one here to the 2nd of Feb, if I return now to the session on the 2nd of Feb, my goals are there waiting to be scored. So this is a common problem that people miss. Now, this is all being recorded, so you'll be able to listen to it again. I've tried to explain it all on video as well on the help pages. But what the basic message is, the date that you create a goal must match the date of the session it was created in, if you want the scoring to appear there, so you're able to score it afterwards. Now, you may, another way of doing this is that you might establish a goal with a client and you don't actually want to go through the process of scoring it with them in that session. And that's perfectly fine, because you can add the goal, and then at the next appointment, when you're offering a measure to be filled in, and the goals measure is one of those measures, the goals will be there, and you'll be able to, the client will be able to score it at that point. So that's one question about goals. Something else about goals is this. You can see as this client went through treatment, another goal was added on the 16th of February, and others could be added as you go along as well. But let's say you started off with the 2nd of Feb, and by the 16th of Feb, the client's actually doing really nicely on sleeping now. Thank you very much. They've listened to your guided imagery recording and taken on board everything you've said about sleep hygiene and all the rest of it. So you don't want to keep hassling them, asking them about a goal that's already achieved. How you control that is here in the actual goal. So let me just click again. You go to the individual goal. You get your own individual chart for that goal anyway. But here, this button, this active, inactive button, you can deactivate a goal. If you deactivate the goal, it's still captured within Pragmatic Tracker, but you just won't ask the client about it. It's like taking an item out of the core 10 and making it the core 9. If you had 4 goals, you might now have just 3 goals you're asking the client about. That would be one reason. The other reason is this. If a client identifies a goal, but it's very obvious that they need to work on other goals first, that it's just too ambitious to be tackling this, it's too much at the moment. It may be that it's lovely that they've voiced it, articulated it, but they're just not ready to work on it. And that might be part of your contract with them about where their focus is for the moment. So you may not want to yet activate that goal early on. So that would be another reason why you would deactivate it. So I hope that addresses that. Somebody asked me about, is it possible for more than one text reminder to be sent about an appointment to a client? Well, sort of yes and no. You can manually, if you've decided to work with the automatic feature, and some of you may not even know about the automatic feature, but if you're on auto, if your setup is on auto, when you create a new appointment for a client, then automatically, as long as the email and the mobile phone number have been verified, Pragmatic Tracker will automatically send out a link to the questionnaires the day before the appointment. Now, you can go in and manually override that. And so you could send out a reminder earlier if you wanted to do so, but it doesn't happen automatically. Although it is something that we'll certainly consider and put on the wish list as something further along. But at the moment, that isn't possible.
Bill, can I ask, is it always SMS text? You don't use WhatsApp at all?
We would dearly love to use WhatsApp, and that's something I'm going to come to again, because this is much more relevant with version 3. We can't use WhatsApp, unfortunately. We can't. There's no way to API it with the system, so it has to be SMS at the moment, unfortunately, because there's a 3p charge with every SMS. So obviously that's a problem. But Yeah, so no WhatsApp. If you ever, any of you ever find out about a way of having WhatsApp integrate with something like Pragmatic Tracker, please send me in the direction of it. I'd dearly love to find it. Yeah. Another question was, can Pragmatic Tracker be used as an office management system to communicate with clients generally, seeing as their email address is captured in here? Well, it can't. Pragmatic Tracker is an outcomes management system. The purpose of capturing the email is to communicate with the client, to remind them about the appointment, and to give them links to questionnaires to fill in. But it's not like a general office management system. I think that covered the most. Oh, chart.
Well, can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
Can the automatic reminder be set just to send a reminder for appointments and not the forms in advance of the session?
Well, as it stands in your current version, that's actually how it is. If you have a text message, do you mean a text or an email?
Either, but not any questionnaires being sent out at the same time.
Not.
Or did I misunderstand what you said? I thought you said that if it's set on automatic, then the client would also get forms sent out prior to the session.
They would if you've chosen them to be done like that. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. When you come to, I'm getting mixed up between the two. With version 3, you've got some more control over how you communicate with the client, but we're actually trying to simplify everything because, yeah, I think it'll probably become more clear once I look in version 3. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
That's okay. Charts, just a quick look at charts as they stand at the moment. Now, I've had questions about green at the top, green at the bottom. Right. So when you're looking at more than one measure at a time, and at the moment in your version, it's show all or it's show one. It's not, as you'll see, this is a big difference with the upgrade you're going to have soon. So when you're on show all, the y-axis changes to between 0 and 100. That's simply percentage. So all of the measures, because some of them are between 0 and 40, some are 0 to 27, some are 0 to 120, 134, or whatever. We normalize them all by turning them into scores between 0 and 100 so they can present on the same chart at the same time. Some people like the idea of improving, going upwards to improvement. Some prefer like along the line of the core, which goes down with improvement. Now, when you go to any individual score, say core 10, watch what happens the y-axis. The y-axis changes from 0 to 40. 40 is red because 40 is the worst you could be on core and 0 is the best. So it comes down. On the other hand, if we switch over to the ORS, it's the exact opposite. 40 is the best you could be and 0 is the worst you could be. So the green is at the top. So that's the logic behind it. But the flipping part only comes in when you've got show all. And this was just because some people prefer green at the top, some people prefer green at the bottom. So it's some of the people, some of the time, and you take your choices. Summary, you'll probably be aware that everything gets transferred over into the summary, including all of the notes. This was something you may not have even noticed that slipped in last year. We brought this about so that, and this is great in supervision, for example, because you can look at everything to do with one client on one page. So sort of going between like looking on the charts and looking on the summary, you've got all of the relevant information in there. Obviously on the charts as well, let's go back to core 10 for a moment. If we click on a scoring point, if we hover on it, you see the score. If you click on it, the table drops down underneath and the risk question is highlighted and all of that. Now, again, this is something you'll see is changing in version 3. It's a big step up and improvement, I think, as well. Just looking at my list here, I think I covered most of the things. So what I'm going to do is, well, everyone, oh, you're unmuting yourself. So I'm just going to pause at this point and see if there's questions or comments or points of clarification needed before we go over to the version 3. So
can I ask about colours, Bill? When you put all of the measures, the show all,
yeah,
it seems to me that when you go from one client to the next, that the colours attributable to the different measures change.
does it?
Yeah. So sometimes you'll look at it and you'll think, though, PRN 14 is always green, and then you look at it and you think, oh no, it's not, it's brown today, or it's red, or so,
well, I have to say I've been looking at this since 2011, and I've never been so conscious of that. I noticed that in your email, all right, earlier on today. I'd actually have to go and study to see if there are. I think, you see, the thing is, remember, this is a generic system. I mean, we've built something like 250 different outcome measures at this point. Now, obviously, very few people use all 250, but people all over the world use all sorts of different combinations of measures.
right.
Basically, I think it's more about the allocation depending on what presentation somebody is choosing to use, because we 250, to try to have 250 different colors would be very difficult. So it's an interesting point. I'll have to study it to see what actually happens. But
it does happen. I've noticed it too.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, guys.
Sometimes you use a red and a dark red, so sometimes you have to look very carefully as to whether it's your core or your trauma score.
I see. Okay, well, the easiest thing I would suggest would be to change it to over here, and I think you'll really like what I'm going to show you in.
Yeah, I always check it that way, but when you're actually using the full chart with the show all to put into a report situation, then you have to describe it very carefully.
Okay, well, again, I think you're going to like what I'm going to show you shortly anyway.
Excellent, thank you.
Bill, I have a question.
Sure.
And I've just messaged it to you. So the question is, when you set up when you talked about the verification code at the beginning, when you check in for your 12-hour session, does that cover all devices? So if I use my laptop, then my desktop, then my phone to use Pragmatic Tracker, do I check in 3 separate times?
I don't believe you do. I don't believe you do. As far as I know, it's the IP. So it's whatever IP you're on at that time. So all devices on that IP should all be, your 2-factor will be done straight away for all of them, you know?
But in which case,
great
if I
question.
did have to, all that would happen is another verification code would be emailed to my email, and then I would just log in on another device if I needed to.
That's right, yeah.
Cool.
But I'm pretty confident that it's by IP though, rather than, the assumption would be that you've logged in from that IP, that's where you are, you know? Yeah, great question.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. The trouble with running the meeting by myself is that I won't be seeing. There's the chat. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I'm got to get used to that. I could probably do with a co-host helping me here. Great. Any more questions before we move on?
I was going to ask about when we come across the odd client who really doesn't want to fill in any questionnaire, and we want to track them online, but we can only use their goals.
Yeah.
Can you do that without putting in a primary measure?
That's a great question, and I have a great answer for you. Yeah. When we upgrade in a couple of weeks, you'll actually be able to choose goals as your primary measure.
Oh, fantastic.
What about that? So that was a very timely question, and again, you'll see this now when I'm so excited about this goals thing, and I'll explain to you more when I move over to version 3 in a minute. So, well, I've got those chats up there now, so I can see if you can always type questions as well, and we can answer them that way. Anybody else got anything else at this point? Anything I've confused anyone on, or is it all okay?
It's okay.
Sounding pretty good. Excellent. Right. This is grand. Okay. So right. So that is the past and the present, and now we're going to jump over to the future. The exciting future. I'm so excited about this because some of these things we've been working on for 2 years, and it's you wouldn't believe the amount of work that goes into moving on to new features, developing them, designing them the way you want them to work, going back, revisiting as they screw up the rest of your system because it affects all sorts of other parts, and it takes a long time. But finally, we've got there, we believe, and we're, as you'll see here. So, okay, demo 3, I just need to log in here as Pat A. Where has he gone? Pat A is there. Come on. Ah, sorry. My, come over here. Pat A, where is it? Ah, why is this not? Never behaves when you need it to. Let me just, what I'll do is another way. Just close that a second. Right, go there now. All items, Pat A. What on earth? Sorry, I'm just going to stop the screen share. It must be the screen share is blocking it. Just one sec. Come on, don't be letting me down now. All items, Pat A. Aha, that's interesting. The screen share was blocking it. Okay, we're back in business. Where's my screen share button? Here we go. Whoops. Ah. All over the place. There it is down there. There we go. Whoops. Screen share. Yes, we got there. Right. Okay. Got this on your screen, Pat A's messages? Yeah? I'm not hearing anybody talking to me.
Yes, it's on our screen.
Yeah. Oh, is it? Okay, good. Right. Now, first thing is we have a much more sophisticated messaging system within Pragmatic Tracker. This won't necessarily be that relevant except for this one thing which I'm showing you here, because you're all, if you like, individual single users. There are some clusters of human givens practitioners on particular projects, but by and large, most of you are lone rangers, if you like. You're just in here by yourselves. So it would only be me you'd be likely to be messaging. But in an organization where people want to communicate internally, we've created this internal messaging. However, what we have done, and it was a request from one of you guys some time back, was when the automatic function is used to send links to clients for questionnaires, then you can arrive at the session on the day, but you don't know whether the client has filled the questionnaire in or not. So the suggestion was, if you could get a message to let you know that the client has filled in the questionnaire, that it would be helpful. So we've done this now, and this happens automatically. So you can see here in Pat A's messages from the system, it says client remote measure. And when I click in there, it says your client Pat A Core 1 has completed the remote measures for their session on the 20th of April. So it's letting you know that that was completed. Now, what you get externally is a message from the system to say that you have a message. Because remember, this is all data protection, it's all security. You're not going to have a message coming out of the system about a client, because particularly if you now had chosen to use the client's actual name, the client's name would be here. So that has all got to be retained inside the system. So what you get is an email letting you know that you've got a message. When you log in, you'll see the message just like you saw there, client remote measure. So I just wanted to explain about that to you. That's the first thing. Now, when we go to this client, we've got Pat A's open client list here. And I'm just going to go to this Pat example 2 client and look at profile again. By the way, again, I don't know if you realize or not, but about the risk aspect. If that profile button there, that tab is a different color, that means there's a note to do with risk related to that client in the client profile. You can see it's here. If I change that to none, it goes and the color goes as well. If I put it back on again, just write something in here. So, or whatever it might be, then you'll notice that when I go back, the client profile is tagged with it, and back on the list as well, the color goes right across. The idea is to bring your attention to that fact that that client has a risk aspect. That's in your existing system as it stands as well at the moment. Now, this is sort of getting to this point about how to communicate with the client. So at the moment, you can choose to have auto, and if you have SMS, the SMS at the moment just goes out to remind the client about their appointment, and it doesn't have anything to do with links. But now the message preferencing for the client can be email or SMS, and or auto can be on or off. So now you can organize this by client, if you like. Now, the SMS is an issue that I'm going to have to discuss with you all. I'll probably do it more by a generic email because I don't want us to get bogged down in it tonight, but it's simply the fact that there's a charge that we have to pay. It's 3p per text. And obviously we can't pay that on everyone's account. So that's a decision that has to be made by people, whether you can work for free with email. I'm sure all of you will have noticed that there are some clients that the emails, just no matter what you do not get through to them. And the problem is that no matter what we do with Pragmatic Tracker, because of spam and the changing spam filtering that's going on all the time, it's very difficult to get it that every single email will work. 90% of the emails will work, but for example, Microsoft Outlook, Hotmail email addresses are notoriously difficult, and they simply filter out our mechanism, and it's very hard to get past them, even though we do all sorts of shenanigans all the time to try to make that happen. So that is something to be aware of. Now, so this is about the message preference of the client that you can set here. But something else I also wanted to make you aware of before I forget it is your own message preferencing as well. So when you want to look at your your user profile, your own profile, you click on your, that's okay. You click on your username and it takes you to your user profile. First of all, you can view the terms that you've agreed to. Now, most of you are grannied into this because you were there before all the GDPR stuff came along. So you have agreed to, by default, through existing already, to the terms of use of Pragmatic Tracker. But this is all in there for you to view anyway, anytime, and the consent. Consent is basically so you know what we hold about you, and all we hold about you is what's in on this page in any case. But you'll notice in here, your message preferencing, this would be where Pragmatic Tracker is telling you that there's a message in Pragmatic Tracker for you. So about a client that's filled in a remote measure, you can choose whether you want those messages to come by email or SMS text. Again, SMS text, unfortunately, has a small charge involved with it that we have to discuss how to deal with, but that's another matter. But that's for you to know about there. Comprehensive help pages, right? The help site, I've just completely rewritten it over the last 6 weeks. There are 75 pages in here, and it's very comprehensive. There's 29 new videos in here. It should be really difficult to get lost in the system. But what I just wanted you to make you aware of, just as before, like wherever I am in the system, if I'm on the client list and I go help, I'll be taken to the client list page. Anytime there's a video, it says how long the video is. So you don't think I've got to sit and listen to that Irish fella for 25 minutes. You have 2 minutes is maybe more than enough. So that video is just 2 minutes there. But if there's something and you think, God, I just can't find what I'm looking for, the chances are, if you put it in here, if you're, I don't know, whatever it might be, editing an appointment. Look, I've got a previous search in there. You can put it into the search up there, click search, and there's a very good chance you'll get to something directly relevant that, you know, if you think, what did he say about such and such a thing? If you just put the question in there, the chances are you're going to get to a page that will explain something about it for you. So it is very comprehensive, the help is. And I think I've sort of dotted the I's and crossed the T's. That's what you say, isn't it? Now, you'll remember I discussed about editing a session record and how you, in your current system, you've got to go to appointment setup. This is now changed and hopefully more obvious. This is where you do it. So you can see if I hover on any of these, it says edit this appointment. So now, if I wanted to change that follow-up, I can click on it. That's what it is, but in here, I'm not able to edit this, as you can see. So if I want to edit that appointment, what I have to do is go and click over here where it says edit the appointment, and then I can make the changes to the date or whatever it might be in there. Or the measures that I want to use, etc. So on that point of a new client setup, obviously you have to click the clinical. Down here, you can see this is the point about somebody was asking me about goals. You can make goals your primary measure if you want to. Okay, so you could have a system where you're measuring just goals and not using any measures at all if you wanted with your clients. I'm just going to cancel that. Progress chart. Right, now onto the really exciting bits. I'm very excited about this anyway, so you've got to be too on my account. You can just pretend. First of all, let me just say on summary. So once again, everything is captured about the client on the summary page. Everything that you've captured in the client profile, and all of the scores, the total value of each score at every scoring point, the problems that you've identified, the goals that you've identified, all of the notes, and any messages relating to that client in an internal. That probably won't really apply very much to any of you, because that would be a message about a particular client. So, but that's just so you know about that. Now, on the charts, here are the things that are different. What you've got at the moment is all or one. Now it's all or any. So we can go core 10, and we can also have goals. And we have the goals in the core 10 showing up, and their color codes are there. Now this might help Fiona, I think, where maybe you just want to report on 2 particular measures, so you can now choose to have just those 2. Or if you want 3, it'll put the 3rd one on. If you want problems, etc., etc. I suspect that client by client, these colors will be different. And I actually don't know. I mean, I got that question from Fiona today, and I thought, oh my God, after all this time, I don't know the answer to that myself. So without going and experimenting, I can't actually answer that for you. But the point is, you can now decide what you want to display with your client. You can have all, or you can have 1, or you can have 2, or whatever. Now you notice as soon as you go to 2, the y-axis will change to 1, not to 100, because again, they're being standardized. But if you're looking at 1 on its own, obviously it will be here. Now, if you're looking at goals by themselves, you'll notice this. Yes, at the moment, as it is now in your existing system, the aggregate score is what shows up on the chart. But now you can look at the individual goal tracks as well. And in fact, you can look at the 3 individual goals the client set, and you can switch off the actual aggregate score of the 3 goals added together. Do you see that? So let's just go back. That is what you're used to at the moment. But now your goals are broken out, goal 1, 2, and 3. You might say, well, what are the goals? Well, click on a scoring point, and here are your goals dropping down below. And you can see that last goal there, there wasn't a first score there because it was only at the second to last time that that was scored. But we can bring them all then onto the chart like this and look at the table so we can see what each of the goals were, to have the conversation with the client. And, you know, it may be that you only want to talk about that one goal with the client. And so you're able to just view that goal on its own if you want to. Now, the other, so that's a major change to allow you to look at all, one, or any combination. And not alone any combination, but any component. So, for example, in a measure like Core 10, looking at Core 10, you can see Core 10 is one component broken out, the risk. So you can look at the risk chart as well there. So that's that. Now here's the other thing. In what you can see at the moment, and in fact, I think I have let's go and look there. This is the system you're currently familiar with. And when I click here, you just see one column here of the score on that day, right? Now let's go to the new system. What you're now seeing is, as before, the score on that day, whichever day I've chosen here, but you're also seeing the previous day, the previous time, and you're also seeing the first time the client came in, right? Now, this was a request made by 2 or 3 different practitioners 18 months ago, and I thought it was a great idea. The idea being that you're able to not alone have a conversation with the client about the overall change in the overall measure, but now you can look at the change item by item, because this might be very significant in that conversation. It may be, for example, you know, I felt able to cope when things go wrong with scoring very badly to begin with, but change has taken place on that. And you can see there's a little deterioration, but not much. So the item by item conversation then becomes one that you're able to have with your clients. I hope that that makes sense to you. I think this is, you know, quite a major step forward. Now, what I want to say about goals is this. If you click on goals and you go to help, you'll see at the beginning of the each help page to do with goals, you'll see a section here with links to some books and some training material, a book and some training material. Now, there's a chap called Duncan Law, and for several years, he's been working on a system that he called goal-based outcomes. And himself, he's a professor of psychology, so is Mick Cooper. Mick Cooper's at Roehampton University, and we work with Roehampton University. And and we've always had this thing about goals and or problems, the sort of antithesis of goals. But we came up with our own way of doing it. And then what I realized a couple of years ago was that Duncan Law had a whole system out there. But of course, because these guys are academics, they've done an awful lot of research. Because they've done research, they've published papers, they've written a book, and they've got a whole system out there. So what I wanted to do was to get Pragmatic Tracker hand in glove fitting with goal-based outcomes, because this helps to establish the empirical basis of working in this way. So for example, with human givens, you're a human givens therapist, as you start to work with goal-based outcomes, you're tapping into a whole body of literature that you didn't have before. And so the presentation, we had to then make some modifications to the presentation of goals within Pragmatic Tracker to make sure they fitted with Duncan Law's goal-based outcomes. You can read all about that in this stuff here, but just to show you what that looks like. It's very simple, really. It's just in goals. When a client is now marking a goal, there's a halfway point. So the language is slightly different to what it is in your existing system. It says the goal is not at all met, it's halfway, or it's reached. That's the language that is the language of goal-based outcomes. So we've built that strong relationship with these guys, and we're very pleased about that. Everything I've said about goals equally works with problems. Problems is like literally the antithesis of goals. It's just turned around the other way. And the reason we have both is because when we first see clients, very distressed often, very agitated, and the idea of using any language around goals is very difficult for them, possibly. But the language around problems is easy for them. They're comfortable with describing what on earth they want to get relief from, the problems they want to get relief from. So you may find, and this is very much down to a personal preference, you may find that you might start off with a client, maybe for a couple of sessions, where you're actually talking about the reduction in their problems. And then your language may change into a language about being more goal-orientated going forward. So the point was, we wanted to give you both options. Now, very quickly, I want to show you the last thing, which is about scatter charts. So this is the other big excitement. Now, when Pat A logs in and looks at their open client list and they want to think how they're doing, well, they can toggle over here and sort the plus minus to change that. So these clients are doing okay. Here's Pat A not well, getting a red signal here. And so that can be drilled into, and you can look at what's going on, etc. Client had done really well and has deteriorated. But we wanted to offer another way at several levels of looking at this. And this other way is the scatter chart. So as well as Pat A being able to toggle this like this, what Pat A can also do is click here on scatter chart. Now, I'm just going to click all. Now, all of the measures that Pat A has used with this variety, these are all fictitious, of course, but these are all here, and these are all different clients that are represented here. All you need to basically know is that if a client is falling on this dotted line, they haven't changed. So if I just change to a core 10, core 10 scores between 0 and 40. The point is related to the combination of what they were the first time and the last available score. So if they are on this dotted line, for example, there, that would mean they were 30 when they came in and they're 30 when they went out. So nothing happened. If they are to the right side of this line, down here somewhere, they're improving. If they're on the line, no change is happening. If they're the other side of the line, the red side of the line, they're deteriorating. So let's just look at all of these cases together. You can see the most of them are down here, but we've got a couple of guys on their own up here. Now, so Pat A can log in. If you imagine you've got 20 clients open at the moment and you wanted to get a pictorial representation of your entire client list, you can immediately be confident to say, especially the further down to this bottom right corner they are, the better they're doing. But the ones up here are the ones to be worried about. And then you can drill straight into that client, hover on it, you'll see who it is. Sure enough, it's that Pat A not well. Click on it and you're brought straight to the chart. I hope you like it, because we really like it. We're very excited about this. And I've got 4 minutes left to 6:30. Right, I'm going to stop talking now and let's see if there is some questions. I'll turn off the screen share just for a moment so I can see you all and I can turn it back on to anything. So I hope that all made some sort of sense to you. And
that's brilliant, Bill. I love that scatter chart at the end. It's really great. I love
Great.
it. I love the new measures. I absolutely love how you can drill down more of those. I'm really excited. When does it all come out again? When's the version 3 coming out?
Well, today at 3 o'clock this afternoon, Tony Jordan upgraded the existing system to the last one. You have to get the iterations right up to before you can do the transfer. So he's brought up the one I was on, the UAT, it's called a user acceptance test site I was on today. He literally got that ready this afternoon. When I've double checked that, the first step will be to update your existing system to the very final version 2.6. And then when I've communicated with everybody, we'll be good to go. So I think within the next couple of weeks, it'll be up and running. So
exciting.
Right. How about that?
There's a couple of questions on the chat, I think, Bill.
Oh my God. Right. Wake up, Bill. Right. Andrew, can the email or telephone be changed once entered? Yes. Indeed it can. Now, let me go back here. So now, when you're over here, the first point, and these, I'm going to be sort of, I think, emailing you all to get feedback from you because it'll take too long to have the discussion now really about this idea of visibility of phone. Now, as you can see in here, there's no email, there's no phone in here at the moment. So there's that, and I click to verify it, and whereas my phone is vibrating with my number, so now I can tick that and save the client. Now, when I go back, so these are turned on so you can see the phone. Now, what you're used to at the moment is nothing in there. But even though there appears to be nothing in there, there is. And you click in it and you just delete the nothing that is in there and you write over it. So yeah, you can at the moment do that. But as I say, I think I'm going to go for probably consensus about this, a majority rule about if people like the idea of the phone number and email address being visible or not. I mean, I think obviously we wouldn't do that without switching on two-factor authentication, though that would be a very important step with that, you know, so it's something to be discussed. Right, how do I get back to where these questions are? Oh, Jennifer answered Andrew, thank. It would be great if the message section could also reports when an email has been sent to a client. That might have to be a wish list item. I'll have to think about that a bit more. Can you send link to core forms alone to clients without sending the problems and goals? Yeah, right. So this question is, Dawn, can you send links to core forms alone without sending the problems and goals with it? Yeah, so let me show you about that. Right. So when you let's say back here you were wanting to do this. Let's say you set up the client profile to begin with, and you thought, well, sometimes I might want to use goals and sometimes I might not. Well, what I would recommend then is to just not choose it in profile at that point. That would be the first thing. For argument's sake, it doesn't matter which measure we're talking about. In this case, it's just the ORS is chosen as the primary measure. So you can leave the goals switched off in the profile if you want. And then in the session, let's go to edit. You're taken to the appointment setup. This is the setup. You can now choose, am I going to use goals or not? You can, and that's the same with any of these measures. You can choose. Now, the ORS is grayed out because it's already been scored, but had it not been scored, you could choose. You can choose to not use your primary measure or use it. You've got full flexibility here. You can decide which measures, whichever ones you click in the appointment setup for that session are going to be the ones that are presented to the client. Now, when the client comes in, if you then want to score the goals with them in the session, you just go into that appointment setup and click the goals, and you've got them available to score within that session then. I hope that answers that question okay. We go back. Can you send a link to corporate? Yes. I've been asked by clients how long their details stay on Pragmatic Tracker. Is it the same as how long we keep notes, or because it's part of a research project, therefore longer? That's a great question. And it really gives me the opportunity. Oh, Are you guys okay for a couple of minutes? So yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, if you need to leave, please leave. It's fine. It'll all be recorded anyway. You can catch the end of it. So that's so this question from Swaya is, I have been asked by clients how long their details stay on Pragmatic Tracker. Is it the same as how long we keep notes, or because it's part of a research project, therefore longer? It's a great question. First of all, on this business of research project, let me clarify this. It started out, as I explained in the slides that I didn't actually talk about at the beginning, the journey started out way back in 2005. But ever since the 5-year paper got published, what's gone on since then, nobody, I did the original research. Nobody has approached me, and of course this was, in my estimation, a very sad thing about the loss of connection with Nottingham Trent University, because a lot of research would have flown out of that ongoing connection. Anyway, that's what happened. But nobody since then has ever approached me to say, Bill, can we access the anonymous data in order to do a research project to find out this, that, and the other about anything? So I hold the repository, if you like, of all of this data. And we've got data on 4,000 clients in the different systems, the first system and then the follow-up system. And the data is there and will stay there, waiting to be used, harvested, mined for all the stories that it could possibly tell. Now, in terms of the protection of the data, obviously that's all part of us, taking care of everything. But obviously you have that obligation of 7 years. So we're very conscious of that, because a lot of people are now keeping their notes in Pragmatic Tracker. So we're very conscious of backing up and keeping that data completely secure. So the answer is, as long as there is an arrangement, between the Human Givens brotherhood, sisterhood, and me, it carries on. The arrangement is not between me and the HGI. I have a very strong relationship with PTSD Resolution, who so believe in the value of all of this. They support the license for HGI as well as their own license. So that will carry on. But let me just say this. No data about any of you guys will leave Pragmatic Tracker to go anywhere without your express written permission. So that would be the first thing. If it were to leave anyway, it would be anonymized. You would never be identified. And your clients would never be identified, even if you had names and emails and phones and all the rest of it. None of that would ever leave. So it isn't like there's some big research project going on in the background behind this. It's really, this now, as it stands at the moment, is a facility for your benefit to use in your work, to have access to your own data, collecting and accumulating over time as a rich body of data, which is available for research purposes. But for example, if I was going to investigate something and write a paper about something going forward from here now, obviously I have access to the data and I can see, maybe a story that could be pulled out of that. But if I was saying, well, I want to look at data relating to 20 practitioners, if 20 clients each or something like that, I would be writing to those practitioners for their permission. So I hope that comprehensively answers that question. Right. Anything else? All good. Right. You may find things come into your head after this that you think, oh, shoot, I should have asked about such and such. Please, by all means, email me and I'll be very glad to answer them. I hope this has been useful. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's clarified anything for you. What I would love, if you ever had the chance, to pop me an email to describe the early part, those early slides of mine going back, slides 1 to 17, where I talk about like in Human Givens, about how it goes hand in glove with the way you work. I would just love to hear your stories about that. I mean, if we had more time, I'd be happy to hear them right here. But I think that's probably more than enough for our first go at this. I would really like to think we do this more going forward. If you have an appetite for it and an interest, I would love to get into more. I think I said to Fiona more about the why about all of this as well as the how. But I wanted tonight to make sure we covered some of these new things and bring you up to speed with where we are at. So I hope you found this useful. I'm delighted that you've all shown up for it. Thank you so much for coming along. And I look forward to seeing you at one in the near future. You'll be hearing from me with various things to do with issues around texting and the cost of that and how we can deal with all of that as well. So you can let me know your thoughts about that and anything else indeed that you think about subsequent to this. So I think that's about it. So we're not run too far over.